I don't plan on relying on someone who hasn't even gotten married past 30, acting all high and mighty with that chump change. I couldn't help but be shocked by the first words directed at me from the woman who was supposed to become my sister in law. My brother, with an even more malicious grin, turned to me. Sis, just go home already. Please don't forget to leave your gift, though. The two of them laughed at me together. I felt something close to hatred towards my brother, but the next words he said made me lose even that emotion. Well, it doesn't really matter if we have your gift or not. All our relatives love me, and they're probably giving us a lot of money. Mom likes me more than you, too, so she might even give me all of her property. Hey, that makes it sound like you're just using them for money. Well, it can't be helped. They're a good source of income. I never thought my brother could be such a terrible person. I was foolish for being considerate of these people. Despite it being our first reunion in a long time, my brother hasn't changed a bit since the old days. If anything, his terrible personality has only worsened, and I couldn't stand it anymore. I reached my limit and left the waiting room while the two of them laughed together. My name is Emma. I'm 32 years old. I work for a foreign cosmetics company. After graduating from college, I worked for another company, but I was lucky enough to be headhunted by my current company and changed jobs. The people I work with are ambitious, and I work tirelessly every day while receiving constant motivation. As a result, I now hold the position of department head. Ever since I started working at this company, they have recognized my worth. Every day has been enjoyable. Of course, there are times when I struggle with work, but the sense of accomplishment after overcoming those challenges is something I can't experience anywhere else. I've never been one to spend my days thinking about how much fun I'm having every day, especially before going to college. My days were very stifling. I have a younger brother, Nate, who is 5 years younger than me. Ever since Nate was born, my mom has been completely devoted to him. She loves him so much that I became less important to her. As a young child, I couldn't find anything to fill the loneliness of not being cared for by my mom. The more my dad and relatives tried to pay attention to me, the more I missed my mom. On the other hand, Nate was the first boy born in our family in a long time. He was also the type to easily get spoiled by anyone. So before long, our relatives stopped caring about me and only doted on my brother. To make matters worse, I have a strong sense of justice and hate wrongdoing. Not many people find a child who points out problems so cutely. Because of this, I became more and more distant from my relatives. The worst part was Nate's personality. Having been pampered by my mom and relatives, Nate grew into someone who couldn't be satisfied unless he was the center of attention, and knew exactly how to behave to get it. You could say he was skillful and good at getting by in life, but you could also say he was manipulative. I couldn't get along well with such a brother. Nate often got into fights, and my mom always defended him. I started to lose my sense of purpose. Not just my mom, but my relatives also started favoring Nate, and I began to feel uncomfortable whenever our family gathered. Seeing me like this, Nate would say, "Why don't you go to the other room, sis?" He had a smiling face, but he was giving me a look that didn't allow any objections. At that time, Nate was in the first grade of elementary school. If something bothered him, he wouldn't hesitate to lie and make me look like the bad guy. I had long lost my position as the older sister. When my brother said that, I had no choice but to leave. But what hurt more than being treated like an intruder by my brother was the way my mother and relatives acted. When my father noticed I was gone and asked, "Where's Emma?" the relatives just shook their heads, and my mother said, "I don't know." Then Nate jumped in. Speaking of which, the other day, my mother and the relatives listened with great interest to his story, as if I never existed. It was so heartbreaking. Nothing changed, even when I wasn't around. At times like that, only my father's sister, Aunt Ava, worried about me. "Here you are. Don't you want to go back to the others? Or do you not want to? As I cried quietly, sad and frustrated, my aunt sat down next to me without me noticing. She gently stroked my back as I buried my face in her lap. When I couldn't say anything, my aunt began to speak softly. I kind of understand how you feel, Emma. Maybe it's because I'm an older sister, too. Ever since my brother was born, he was the one who got all the attention. And you know how our relatives are, mostly women, right? So they really spoil the boys. I always thought it was unfair. You too, Aunt Ava? I was surprised. My aunt was always cheerful and in charge at family gatherings, and I never would have thought she felt that way. My aunt smiled gently in response to my question. Yes, when I was a kid. I was so jealous of my brother all the time. But he wasn't very talkative, so he wasn't always the center of attention like Nate. I think you must be feeling much worse than I did. Aunt Ava said this while gently stroking my head. I hadn't had my head patted like this in so long, and I felt a mix of emotions, happiness and embarrassment for letting her see how weak I felt. Our family has strong ties, you know. And Nate is kind of cunning, or maybe he's just good at winning people's hearts. He has that kind of personality, right? Everyone gets easily fooled by him. Really, Aunt Ava? You think that about Nate too? I was surprised again, thinking that no one in the family saw my brother that way. Aunt Ava winked at me, surprised. So don't forget, I'm watching you, Emma. If you want, I can talk to everyone about it. No, it's okay. Just knowing that you're watching me is enough to make me happy. All right, I understand. But if there's anything you want me to hear, I'll listen. You can always rely on me. After that, I looked forward to seeing my aunt at family gatherings. Even now that I've moved away, I still keep in touch with her regularly. The only other contact I have is the occasional email from my father with updates. Since I rarely go home, I don't know much about my family and relatives' current situation, so I never expected to get this kind of news from my father. Nate is getting married. Right now, I don't have a partner. One by one, my friends are getting married, and lately, even my coworkers are in a marriage rush. At a time when I was feeling a bit anxious, I got the unexpected news of my younger brother's wedding. Even though I'm not unhappy with my current life, I felt down. Then Nate contacted me, adding insult to injury. Hey sis, long time no see. I'm getting married, and my fiancée is already pregnant. Don't worry about not being married and showing our parents your grandchild. I've got that covered. But in return, give us at least $10,000 as a gift. It includes the cost of giving birth. Kids are expensive, you know. My already low excitement to celebrate Nate's wedding dropped to 0. Because of his sense of entitlement, I even considered not attending the wedding. But I convinced myself that this was a once-in-a-lifetime family event and decided to accept Nate's request. On the wedding day, after the ceremony, we were led to a family waiting room to prepare for the reception. I reunited with my mom and relatives after a long time had passed without seeing them. Of course, the topic was all about Nate. I tried to accept it since he was the star of the day, but my past memories kept coming back. That day, the gloomy, cloudy sky seemed like it would rain any moment, and my mood got darker and darker. That's when my dad talked to me. Emma, it's been a while. How's work? Oh, Dad, I'm getting by somehow. I see. So would you consider coming back home more often? My dad said that, but I didn't feel like it. Yeah, I'll come back when work calms down. I need to go to the restroom now. I left the family waiting room. I couldn't get out of there fast enough. I thought I had changed a bit, but I see others don't change so easily. As expected, I felt uncomfortable in front of my relatives. I let out a big sigh. At that moment, my phone vibrated. Come to the bride and groom's waiting room right now. It was a message from Nate. What does he want at a time like this? I headed to the bride and groom's waiting room, pondering. Did you bring it? As soon as I arrived, Nate asked me this question. I didn't understand at first. But I realized what he meant from his and his wife's nasty looks. Yeah, I brought the $10,000 gift. Are you satisfied now? Congratulations on your wedding. I reluctantly offered my congratulations, even though my heart wasn't in it. But I immediately regretted being considerate. Only $10,000? I clearly said to give more than that. Isn't it common courtesy to give more than the requested amount? You're as clueless as ever, sis. Wait a minute. Isn't $10,000 already a generous amount? I gave it because you said the baby was coming. Isn't your attitude a bit much? If you choose to act like this, I don't want to be involved with you in the future. As I snapped back, Nate exaggeratedly clicked his tongue. I was really annoyed that despite giving them the $10,000 they asked for, they still complained. As I glared at my brother, his wife standing next to him put her hand on her hip and laughed at me. Don't worry. We don't plan on relying on someone who's still unmarried in her 30s and acting so high and mighty for such a small amount of money. I couldn't help but be shocked by the first words directed at me by the woman who was supposed to be my sister-in-law. Nate also gave me a malicious grin. Yeah, just take your gift and leave. Make sure you leave the gift money. The two of them laughed at me together. I felt a strong hatred for my brother and his wife, but Nate's next words made me lose that feeling. Well, even without your gift, we'll be fine. All our relatives love me. I'm sure they gave us a lot of money. Mom likes me more than you, too. She might even give me her entire fortune. Wait, that makes it sound like you're just using them for money. Well, it's true. That's why we invited fewer friends and more relatives. I never thought my brother could be such a terrible person. I couldn't help but be shocked by Nate and his wife, who seemed to find it amusing that he viewed our relatives and even our mother like that. I was stupid for worrying about them. I was disgusted by my brother, who hadn't changed at all since we were kids and had only gotten worse. Unable to bear it any longer, I left the bride and groom's waiting room as they continued to laugh. Emma! As soon as I left the waiting room, I heard someone call my name. It was my Aunt Ava. Seeing my aunt, I couldn't help but let my feelings show. Auntie, I can't take it anymore. I'm leaving. When I said that, my aunt showed her anger. I heard what just happened. This is unforgivable. Everyone should know about it. But it's true that everyone likes Nate, right? If I say something, I'm sure no one will believe me. It's not like he's forcing our relatives to give them money, so it's just a matter of me putting up with it. It's fine. I don't think I'll ever see them again anyway. Apparently, my aunt had been worried about me looking uncomfortable in the relatives' waiting room and followed me when I left. After she had heard my conversation with Nate and his wife, my aunt suggested telling everyone. But after seeing the two of them laughing and looking down on our entire family and relatives, I had already given up. However, my aunt was filled with anger, contrary to how I felt. You don't have to put up with it anymore, Emma. I never thought Nate would go this far. There's still time. Let's confront them together and reveal everything. If anyone still supports Nate after that, then they can be their source of money or whatever else they want. Encouraged by my aunt's words, I decided to face the situation and returned to the family room with her. Surprisingly, my mother's brother, Uncle John, believed my story right away. Actually, there have been some bad rumors about him at the company. I didn't want to doubt my nephew, and I thought it was natural for the business to have some bad times. But after hearing Emma's story, it all makes sense. I guess I was only considered valuable as long as I was paying him. Uncle John runs a company, and Nate works there. It seems Nate has been taking advantage of his position as the president's nephew and doing whatever he pleases. Because Uncle John is the company's president, our relatives respect him. When he acknowledged my story, everyone started to believe me, one by one. There's no way Nate could be like that. My mother, who had been adamant until the end, gradually grew suspicious, not only because of me, but also because my aunt had talked about Nate. My mother, who had been asked for hundreds of thousands of dollars for wedding and childbirth expenses, seemed to have her doubts, and eventually accepted our story. My father, who seemed to have believed me from the beginning, was radiating with anger. At that moment, when all the relatives finally listened to me and my aunt, my father spoke up.
I'm sorry for our son. We must have raised him wrong. Let's all go home today. He doesn't deserve to be celebrated.
With those words from my father, my mother and all the relatives decided not to attend the wedding reception. My parents hurriedly left the family room to explain the situation to the other guests. As we waited at the shuttle bus stop, the people who were supposed to attend the wedding started to arrive. At the end of the crowd, I could see my parents. My father gave me a strong nod when he saw me. I'm sure all the guests had decided not to attend. Thank you for believing in me. I tried to convey that to my father, but as I approached him, he was yelling into his cell phone.
Who would celebrate someone like you, who repays kindness with malice?
The person on the phone must be Nate. It was the first time I had seen my father so openly angry.
I heard from Aunt Ava, Nate. It seems you've been calling our family and relatives a bunch of gold diggers. How could you say that after all they've done for you? We have no intention of celebrating you anymore. We're going home today.
My father hung up the phone and apologized to me for all the hard times I had gone through. As soon as we got on the bus, Nate called me.
Emma and Aunt Ava turned everyone against us and spread rumors. Now nobody's left at the venue.
I calmly responded to Nate, who was panicking and raising his voice. Your Aunt Ava heard you guys making fun of the family. She joined in the conversation, so everyone believed us. Can you stop saying I spread rumors? I just told the truth. It's the same thing. What are you going to do about it? And I don't know. We're already on the bus.
Don't say that. Are all of them on the bus too? If so, please convince them to come back with you.
At first, Nate was confident, but now his voice sounds like he's about to cry, realizing the situation is bad. But I didn't feel like forgiving him at all. You just want the gift money, don't you?
That's not my intention.
Either way, we're not coming back, so goodbye. I'll cut ties with you after this.
Wait, sis.
I heard my brother's desperate voice from the phone, but I hung up without caring. After that, cell phones started ringing, one after another on the bus. It must have been my brother and his wife calling, but no one answered the calls from someone who saw their family and relatives as cash cows. In the end, my brother and his wife couldn't get any gift money from the attendees, not just me, our parents and relatives. They seemed to have planned to pay for the wedding with the gift money and ended up in a lot of debt. Not only me, but our parents and relatives were contacted for help, but no one was willing to help Nate anymore. On top of that, they lost contact with the few friends they had invited. The punishment for my brother was far from over. Our uncle fired Nate. He probably couldn't bring himself to defend my brother, who had been performing poorly and had a bad reputation. His wife had already quit her job for marriage, and even though they were in debt, I'm pregnant. She didn't seem to want to work. In the end, they had no money, constant fights, and decided to divorce before the baby was born. After giving birth, his wife tried to make money working at night, but her bad personality held her back, and she could barely pay off the debt. My brother couldn't find another job and got stuck in a cycle of borrowing more money to pay off his debts. He seemed to have come back home for help several times, but both our father and mother rejected him. On the other hand, I've been going back to my parents' house more often since Nate's wedding. I've been attending family gatherings, and I don't feel uncomfortable anymore. As a result, I feel like I have more room in my heart and can see things from a much broader perspective. I've become more flexible in dealing with work accidents and requests, and my colleagues, subordinates, and bosses have praised the change in atmosphere. And just the other day, I was invited to dinner by a salesperson from a company we've been dealing with for a while. I feel a little excited about the long-awaited signs of spring.
Enough! I'm just an unwanted child anyway. A young girl screams with all her might. longing for her mother's true love. What is a family really? As I ponder this eternal question, I hold the crying girl in my arms. My name is Emily. I became pregnant for the first time at 32. My husband Kenneth is 35 and has a child from a previous marriage. This is my first marriage, but Kenneth's second. He has a daughter with his ex-wife, Rosie. Rosie's infidelity was the cause of the divorce. Kenneth wanted to take his daughter, but she, only 2 at the time, adamantly refused to leave Rosie. Reluctantly, Kenneth let her go, as Rosie promised to take care of her. 5 years after the divorce, Kenneth still pays child support, but has never seen his daughter. I met Kenneth 4 years ago. We married a year after dating, and soon conceived. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't concerned about Rosie's child, but I harbored no negative thoughts. Instead, I felt sorry for Kenneth, unable to see his child. Before my pregnancy, I hadn't thought much about children. However, carrying a new life made me realize the pain of being separated from one's child. The mere thought of being apart from a newborn is terrifying. Maybe I'm slowly gaining a sense of parenthood. One day, while walking with Kenneth after a prenatal checkup, he suddenly exclaimed, "Ah!" he exclaimed. In front of us was a couple, arms linked. "Wow, long time no see," the woman said to Kenneth. "You too. Wait, isn't Stephanie with you?" I recognized the name. This woman was Kenneth's ex-wife, and Stephanie, their daughter. Despite living in the same city, their encounter left me speechless. Stephanie? Isn't she at home? She seemed indifferent about her daughter, out on a date with a man, possibly her boyfriend or husband. What's with that tone? You should know where your child is. She's in elementary school. She can stay home alone. She's only a first grader. Alone at home? Don't meddle in other people's business. Stephanie is my daughter. Sure. Keep paying the child support, okay? Hey! Ignoring an angry Kenneth, she and the man quickly left. A few days later, while shopping alone, I saw a familiar woman approaching. Perfect timing. I was about to go to your house. Here, take this. She thrust a young girl with a school bag in front of me. Her daughter, Kenneth's Stephanie. She must have learned our address through Kenneth. What I thought was coincidence wasn't. I'll be away for a while. Can you look after her? Wait a minute. Before I could respond, she disappeared. How fast? Left with Stephanie, I suggested. Let's go home. I couldn't leave her there. She was expressionless, silent, and immobile. Finally looking at me. I know I might not be perfect, but please take good care of me, she said politely. A first grader? Really? Confused, I let her roam. I'm so sorry. I gave Rosie a piece of my mind. Kenneth apologized when he returned from work. It's okay. We can't leave a small child alone. I understand. It's unclear what Stephanie thought of her father, but she quietly read her book. A very well-behaved, quiet girl. That was her first impression. Odd for a first grader not to miss her mother after a few hours, yet she said nothing, until Kenneth got home. Want some snacks? Or, how about watching some anime? I tried to engage her. Don't worry about me. But all I got was, do you enjoy school? What's your favorite food? When I asked. Nothing in particular, she simply replied. Eventually, we both fell silent. It was incredibly awkward. That woman, she's off on a week-long trip with her new boyfriend, not even thinking about where to leave the child. It's just terrible. How did she handle these situations before? Probably our recent accidental meeting made her think she found the perfect place to leave Stephanie. Her parents are long gone, Kenneth murmured softly, filling the air with a sense of helplessness. For a week, Stephanie remained a good girl. You might think that's good, right? No, I think it's not good at all. She's a child, right? Still a first grader. Isn't this the age to be a bit troublesome? In the end, she stayed good, and the week ended with an awkward silence. Then the day came for Kenneth's ex-wife to pick her up. On that Sunday morning, Stephanie seemed unusually restless. "Mommy, is she coming?" She's still a child, missing her mother. Just as I was thinking this. "What? You said your wife was there, right?" "Listen, my wife is pregnant and can't manage everything. You know that, right? Think about Stephanie's feelings, waiting eagerly for you." Kenneth's angry voice echoed. Stephanie looked out the darkening window with sad eyes. Her mother didn't come to pick her up at the agreed time. When Kenneth called her, she must have said something came up. Kenneth was furious. No pickup time for Stephanie today. "Keep your promises! It's cruel, isn't it?" Hey! You're kidding me! She hung up. Kenneth stood stunned after being abruptly cut off. "Stephanie, how do I explain this?" As I reached to touch her shoulder, she slapped my hand away. "Stephanie? It's fine." "What?" "It's fine! I'm just an unwanted child anyway." "Stephanie, wait. Mommy always does this. Always choosing men over me. Always coming home late. Never cooking. Always just fast food from the grocery store. Just bread for school trips. Never coming to classroom observations. And she won't come to the upcoming sports day either." "Stephanie." Tears overflowed her eyes. "Am I unwanted? Am I just a nuisance to Mommy? I kept my promise. I was good. But Mommy. Stephanie." Unable to hear more, I hugged her tightly. At that moment, he probably couldn't hold back anymore. Stephanie burst into tears. She must have been holding back all this while, believing that being good would make her mother care. There were no unnatural injuries or shabby clothes on Stephanie. Her mother provided care, in a sense. But what a young child needs most is love. A tight hug, a gentle stroke on the head, to be told, "I love you, you're precious." That's what she never received from her mother. "Stephanie!" Kenneth couldn't help but embrace her too. "Dad." Their relationship had been awkward all week. A father and daughter, connected by blood, looking alike, but between them lay a thick wall, built over the long months of not being able to meet. However, the moment Kenneth hugged Stephanie, it felt like the wall between them crumbled. For a while, the three of us continued to embrace and cry. Eventually, her mother came to pick her up, but not until another week had passed. A month after Stephanie returned to her previous life with her mother. "I want to take Stephanie back." Kenneth spoke to me with a serious expression. "It's okay," I immediately replied. "Are you sure about deciding so quickly?" "What are you talking about? I've thought a lot over this month. If you hadn't brought it up, I would have suggested it." "Really?" "Yes. After all, Stephanie is your daughter, your beloved daughter, and she's going to be the big sister to our baby." I rubbed my swollen belly. At that moment, as if agreeing, the baby inside kicked. Overwhelmed with happiness, I looked at Kenneth. She needs a family that loves her, not just someone who lives with her and feeds her. She needs a real family. "Emily, let's go get her. Our precious Stephanie." "Thank you. Honestly, I still don't feel like Stephanie is my daughter, but she must feel the same. To her, that woman is her only mother, and she can't see me as a parent. That's okay. Better than leaving her with that woman. I can't bear to see her cry like that again. It doesn't have to be a mother-daughter relationship. Family doesn't have to be just that. That's what I want to believe. But we shouldn't force her. We need to talk to Stephanie first and understand her feelings." "Yes. Her feelings are what matter most." "Thank you." "It's something I can't do. Dad, you should do it." "Of course. I'll also consult a lawyer to make sure we can get custody without any issues." "Please do." And so, we began preparing to welcome Stephanie. But things moved unexpectedly fast, starting with Stephanie's sudden appearance at our house. One day, returning from a baby checkup, I found someone sitting in front of our house. It was Stephanie. What happened? Mommy? She burst into tears. Her hands were incredibly cold. How long had she been sitting there? Seeing Kenneth rush home early after my call, she cried again. After she cried herself to sleep, Kenneth called Rosie. What? You don't want her anymore? What does that mean? Rosie's voice came through Kenneth's phone on speaker mode. So my current boyfriend doesn't like kids. I can't keep her here. Just don't let the man into the house. He wants to live together, but I can't just abandon Stephanie, right? I don't want to be accused of being cruel to my child. Leaving her outside our house is cruel enough. What can I do? I just delivered her to her father's house. She's yours, Stephanie. You raise her. Fine. I get it. I'll raise Stephanie with all my love. She'll never go back to you. Is that what you want? That's what I'm saying. Oh, and I can't pay child support. I have no income. I don't expect anything from you. I'll see a lawyer tomorrow to start the process of changing custody, so make sure you cooperate. Okay. My boyfriend is calling. Bye! With a flippant reply, she ended the call. A long silence followed, broken only by Kenneth's deep sigh. I'm sorry. Don't apologize to me. Right, I'll check on Stephanie. Please stay with her. Emily? Yes? Thank you. I returned Kenneth's tired smile with my own. I didn't know what would happen, but just like the child in my belly, I was determined to protect Stephanie too. That decision, however, didn't make the sudden start of parenting easy. I hate this. I don't want it. I won't eat it. Don't talk to me. The complete opposite of her previous visit, Stephanie was now a difficult child. Probably due to the anxiety of being away from her mother. She needed to vent her feelings. I endured patiently. You can't throw things just because you hate them. Everything has life. You won't grow if you don't eat. You can't communicate if you just keep to yourself. Tell me about yourself, Stephanie. Gradually, as I continued to interact without faltering, her attitude began to change. As my due date approached and I was rubbing my growing belly, Stephanie hesitantly came closer. Seeming curious about my belly, I asked her, Do you want to touch it? Can I? Of course. Just gently. Yes! With blushing cheeks, Stephanie gently touched my belly. At that moment, ah! The baby kicked. It's saying it can't wait to play with you. Did it kick because I touched? Is the baby mad at me? No, not at all. It's saying it's excited to have you as a big sister. Big sister? Yes, Stephanie, you are this baby's big sister. Really? I'm a big sister. Although she wasn't blood related to me, she indeed was the baby's big sister. That thought felt strange to both of us, and we shared a smile. It was the first time she truly smiled from her heart. Soon after, our son, Theo, was born. As a first-time mother, I was extremely cautious with the newborn. Kenneth, too, was gingerly holding the baby, his touch hesitant after so long. Stephanie was astonished by the presence of a baby, a brother, and the innocent face of the sleeping infant. Our strange relationship, no doubt, looked like a real family to anyone. Over 10 years have passed since we welcomed Stephanie into our family. Now, close to graduating high school, Stephanie has finally grown out of her rebellious phase. These days, it's Theo who's more troublesome. One day, Kenneth received a call from Rosie, his ex-wife, after more than a decade of estrangement. What could it be? I was worried. After the call, Kenneth summoned Stephanie and me to the living room. Rosie wants to see Stephanie. What? Why now? Apparently, Rosie is alone now. She must be lonely. Always so selfish. Kenneth spat out angrily, raw emotion in his voice. I felt the same. After all these years of ignoring Stephanie, not even trying to see her? But the decision to meet or not was Stephanie's. Kenneth and I looked at her. Stephanie, it's your decision. To Kenneth's question. I want to see Mommy, she said. I see. but just to meet. I don't want to live with her. I momentarily thought she couldn't forget her biological mother, but her next words surprised me. My place is here, with Dad, Emily, and Theo. Here. Only. Stephanie. But still, Mommy is Mommy. Please understand my desire to see her. Of course. She has grown up, become an adult. I was moved to tears by her ability to express her feelings so clearly. Stephanie calls me by my name. I'd be lying if I said it didn't bother me, but I don't wish for her to call me anything else. In any form, we are a family. That was enough for me. And then, Stephanie went to meet Rosie. She planned to stay for a few days during the long weekend. I was worried. What if meeting Rosie made her feel that she preferred her real mother? What if she wanted to live with her? I had no right to stop her, but I feared Stephanie might get hurt. My only wish was that she wouldn't be hurt, or end up in tears. But Stephanie came back to our house. She returned the same day, even though she was supposed to stay over. What happened? Kenneth and I were surprised. She told us, I met Mommy. We talked about a lot. Her conversation with Rosie went like this. You've grown so much. Well, it's been over 10 years. What will you do after graduating high school? I'm going to college. Wow. Then you'll get a good job, won't you? I've decided what I want to do, and I'll work hard to achieve it. Amazing. Just like my daughter. Stephanie gave a wry smile, but Rosie didn't notice. You must have been uncomfortable living with a woman who's not your real parent. That's not true. Emily was very kind. The packed lunches for school trips were delicious. We even ran in the parents' relay at the sports day. She always came to classroom observations. It must be nice to have so much free time. Rosie laughed mockingly, and Stephanie couldn't overlook it. That's not fair. You never did anything for me. Mommy was very busy. You weren't working, were you? Well, I managed the child support from Dad. Huh? That stopped when you went to live with Dad. I've been struggling. And now I don't have a boyfriend, so I'm totally out of money. But if you live with me, it'll be fine. Huh? If you take up part-time jobs, we'll manage. You can work hard, right? What are you saying? I'm not living with you. Stephanie said with quiet anger. I came today to put an end to things. I've always wanted to tell you something. What is it? Thank you for raising me until elementary school. So you're going to repay the favor? Wait, listen to the whole story. And thank you for leaving me with Dad and Emily. They loved me very much. Emily gave me the love you never did. An overflowing love. That? Rosie was speechless, her body rigid. Family can be formed without blood ties. That's what I learned. My family is only those people. Mommy is mommy, but not family. I wanted to say goodbye properly. Goodbye, Mommy. I won't see you again. Wait! What about my life? That's not my concern. Find another boyfriend? Sorry, I'm really sorry. If you resent me for the past, I apologize. So, no need to apologize. I don't resent you. I'm thankful for letting me meet my current family. So that? Stephanie shook off Rosie's begging arms, smiled again, and said, Goodbye. So, she parted from her mother. Is that okay? Yes, I intended to do that from the start. I won't meet her again. Didn't I say? My place is here. My family is everyone here. Dad, Theo, and Mom. Huh? I was momentarily confused by what she called me. Surprised, Stephanie. Making a funny face, she said with a laugh. What did you just say? Mommy is Mommy. Dad is Dad. Theo is my brother. And Emily is Mom. Right? Her cheeks flushed with a shy blush. Mom, Stephanie repeated, and I couldn't hold back anymore. Stephanie! Wow! She looked puzzled as she embraced me, tears streaming down my face. Really? Mom always cries so easily, she said, laughing. After that, the whereabouts of that woman who fell into debt remained unknown. Our family's connection with her was completely severed. Hey Stephanie, you forgot your lunch money? Oh no, I have a part-time job and we'll be home late today. Call me when you get to the station. I'll come pick you up. No need for that. It is necessary. It's dangerous. Alright, I understand. You worry too much. What kind of mom wouldn't worry about her daughter? Stephanie, now a university student, seems busy, but happy with her student life. Her constant smiles make me happy too. I'm off then, Mom! She waves as she leaves. I too smile and wave back, wishing happiness for our family today as well.